If ever your life could be a true crime podcast episode, then this podcast is for you. We're about to embark on a roller coaster of emotions, insights, survival, and stories about escape. So buckle up and let the journey begin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Escape Pod again. I am Julie.
I'm Charity.
We are your Escape Pod co-hosts. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
What are you escaping from this fine day?
Well, I think I have finally figured out my whole Charity can't have caffeine thing.
Oh.
I don't think it's the caffeine. I think it's histamine.
Oh, yeah. You've
I went to
theorized this before.
I did theorize. I went to I had a doctor visit this morning and talked to her about it, and she's like, I love how you just keep researching until you figure it out. And I'm like, but that makes the most sense because if I eat a lot of tomatoes or, so she's like, yeah, so we could do this or we could do this. So anyway, I have, it's a supplement that's forgot my words.
I have no idea because I have no medical knowledge of these types of things whatsoever.
I don't know either. I did know about 2 hours ago. It's out of my brain.
Okay.
Anyway, so I have something coming, and so that'll play into what I'm escaping to, because once I get it, I'm going to try to drink
caffeine and see what happens?
Yes. Do you know how much better my life would be if I could have caffeine?
Can you wait until oh my gosh, I cannot
Till
we record again. There you go.
Yeah, we'll do an experiment at my expense. Everyone can laugh.
My escape is similar in that we had a few super, super, super windy days and nights, which meant I had like 2 nights where I did not sleep very well because I could just hear the wind.
It was so loud.
So loud. So then the sleep deprivation has been followed by overcaffeination, which now a non-windy night meant I still did not sleep. Like I was wide awake at 1:30 in the morning.
Yep.
So it's a nasty little cycle.
Well, because I never have caffeine, very, 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 very rarely. I won't say never because it's really hard not to ever. But I really have not had any for quite some time. I was out with my friend Michelle last night, and where we were at had a gluten-free, like a chocolate fudgy torte, and it's just a thin slice. And I didn't eat all of it, but just the caffeine in that.
The cocoa.
I could not. Yeah, that's why I slept in this morning, because I just didn't pass out like I normally do. I go home, especially this time of year. I just want to hibernate. I go home, I take my work clothes off, I just get ready for bed almost immediately. And I was just like, what? It's 9:00. Oh my God, it's late. So yeah, watching Yellow Jackets.
There you go.
So
okay, so if you haven't listened to last week's
this is a 2-parter
episode, we did lesser creepy versions of today's on phrogging. So do you want to help people remember what phrogging is if they have already forgotten or if maybe they haven't listened to last week?
Yeah, if you're listening backwards, phrogging is, I don't know why they call it that.
I don't either.
And it's phrogging. So
PH. That's unfortunate because I really liked thinking of it as like Frogger, like the old video game.
That's not it.
Okay.
So I don't get it. But it's when someone is basically squatting in your home, but your home is occupied by you.
Yes.
And you don't know they're there. Right. And in the cases we read last week, a lot of the people immediately go to the paranormal, like some things are happening around my house. Am I crazy? What's going on?
They're sure it's a ghost.
And it's a human.
Ooh.
This should not be there.
Correct.
So how this got put on my radar was the story of Daniel LaPlante. And I've heard it across a multitude of different podcasts over the years. This is a classic one, like it's from the mid-'80s.
Okay.
So it's very, very well known. And this guy, Daniel LaPlante, was a kid when this happened, and he is like the king of phrogging.
Ew. That is not a title I want.
Frog King.
I like it.
Okay, he's the Frog King.
Okay, right. I'll accept that. I won't accept
And this one is a
story.
true horror story. So I went easy on you last week. So you kind of got a sense of what we were talking about, but this one is, we're going for it.
Okay.
Okay. You ready?
No.
You want to pull the garbage pail closer in case you need to,
Ooh, is it that bad?
It's kind of gross.
Okay.
It's really tragic. So, okay, this is a horror story. Begins in December of 1986 in Pepperell, Mass. A man named Frank Bowen was learning what life as a single father to 2 daughters was like after losing his wife to cancer. So she, didn't succeed in her battle. She left him to raise 15-year-old Tina and 9-year-old Karen on his own. And what's worse, because they were now a single income family, Frank had to take on extra hours to support his grieving family. So unfortunately, that meant leaving his daughters alone at home more often than he would have liked to. So the girls, left to their own devices and longing to know that their mother was okay, decided one night to attempt to contact her through a Ouija board. I will not touch a Ouija board.
Nope.
I have my limits. Will not touch it. So they tried for hours to no avail, or so they initially thought. Later that evening, after the girls had given up and gone to bed, some 2 hours later, some strange noises woke them out of their sleep. They both sat straight up in bed in an effort to kind of hone in on this quiet tapping. Tap, 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 tap.
Oh, stop it.
And figure out where it was coming from. And it sounded like it was coming from inside the walls. So they were really confused. And pretty soon, that tapping turned into knocking that increasingly grew louder. And this led them to believe that the seance had worked and that they had indeed contacted their mother. So it was a mixture of fear and excitement and hope and dread, kind of all at the same time. And so when their father returned home, they tell him all about it. And now they're excited that their mom has reached out to them from beyond the grave. He dismisses it immediately, chalking it up to the vivid imaginations of grieving daughters. That is at first, he did. But night after night, this continued. The knocking sound would wake the girls from a dead sleep. And it started to frighten them. It wasn't becoming hopeful or having that hopeful feeling anymore. They would call their father out for him, but every time he'd come to their room, the knocking would stop. So now he's starting to grow very concerned over his daughter's mental health, obviously. So the strange activity escalates. The knocking becomes more aggressive and more consistent. And now it's ruining the girls' sleep entirely. And then their possessions begin misplacing themselves. So items that the girls knew for sure were securely located where they should be and would be found. They would be found in different places, thrown across the floor. Furniture begins being moved to different parts of the room. Full alcohol bottles are mysteriously being emptied. Food is disappearing. Their toilets being used. TV channels would change from where they'd left it when they turned it off. But their dad refused, he just couldn't handle anymore. He was not buying this whole supernatural shtick. He believed it was his daughters vying for his attention, obviously in the wake of losing their mother, right?
Yeah.
And they were adamant, we are not doing this. We're scared. We don't have anything to do with these. We're terrified. And this went on for around a month. And then one evening in January, the knocking sounded like it was coming from the basement for the first time. So that was new.
Okay.
Remember earlier it was in the walls?
In the walls.
Okay. So the girls were terrified to nearly the point of insanity. Plus, their dad saying, you're making this up. They're starting to think they're crazy. But they were motivated because what if it was the ghost of their mom?
Sure.
So they decided to investigate in the basement. No, I'm not going to do it. But not before grabbing a large kitchen knife first. So at least they did that. Okay. They should have GTFO'd.
We hope it's mom and that we don't need to use this.
Yeah, but mom would be a ghost and the knife wouldn't hurt her.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. So, but they were covering their bases. So they head down to the bottom of the basement steps and the noises stop. And on the basement wall, written in something that looked like blood, were the words, I'm in your room. Come and find me.
That is not okay.
That is not okay. So Karen and Tina flee the home and run to the safety of a neighbor's house to tell them what they had just seen. The neighbors called their father at work, and when he arrived, he still thought they were just doing this to get his attention. So he decided to send them to a counselor, but the activity only increased. Weeks later, the knocking grew even more insistent and seemed to be coming from behind Tina's bedroom wall specifically. And upon entering her room, another message scrawled in what looked like blood across her bedroom wall read, "I'm back. Find me if you can."
Ew.
So this time when the neighbors called the girls' father, he was furious. But when he entered the house, there had been more activity than what they had described to him. So some other things had happened since they left the house. If they're not there, then clearly they're not doing it, right? So now he knew someone else must have been behind this. And so he enters Tina's room, and there was a new message on the wall that read, "Marry me."
Ew.
And as Frank stared at the wall, trying to wrap his brain around what he's seeing, he notices a figure standing on the other side of the room behind him, dressed in his dead wife's clothing, wearing a blonde wig and holding a hatchet.
Oh my gosh.
So now, we're going to let you hang on that for a little bit. We're going to rewind in time before all of this activity happened. The Bowen family, this is the family, received a call from a boy Tina's age named Danny, who told them he'd gotten their number from a schoolmate, a classmate. He told Tina that he was blonde, athletic, attractive, a smart, good grades, blah, 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 who lived in their neighborhood, and he wanted to meet her. So they spoke on the phone for a few weeks, as you did back in the dark ages. And she began to kind of like the attention. And so one night they met for a date. Okay. So that night came. She opens her door to greet him, and shock, he was nothing like he described. He was exactly the opposite. So he was that pasty, pockmarked, scarred from acne, scrawny, dark, greasy hair hanging in his eyes guy. I just showed you the picture up before we recorded. So really creepy. But she's, we're taught in our society that you have to be polite. You can't just nope the fuck out of there. She felt obligated. So she still went on that date. And the topic of the passing of her mother came up. Later, she kind of thought maybe that was weird because he immediately developed almost an obsession with the topic, wanted to keep wanting to know how much she was suffering at the loss of her mother. And how do you even quantify that? But whatever, he was really weird. So she went on the date, but she ended it pretty quickly. And then she GTFO'd, never to go on another date with him and refusing to take his repeated calls. He kept trying. Unfortunately, Danny was a highly psychologically disturbed dude who'd suffered a whole terrible upbringing himself, including his father would often abuse him both physically, emotionally. Oh, I guess even sexually. I forgot about that part. He struggled to make friends. He struggled with his grades. No one taught him proper hygiene habits. So all the strikes were against him. Kids at school thought he was creepy and weird. And then when school officials stepped in to help him, they referred him to a psychiatrist. That same psychiatrist would sexually abuse Danny for almost an entire year. So this kid had absolutely no hope. So he's learned, obviously, he can't trust anyone in his life, right? Which means he resorted to crime. He begins breaking and entering and stealing from people. This was kind of how he felt like he could take some control over his life. And so by 15 years old, instead of just stealing, he would get in people's houses and move things around to mess with their heads. And he really developed a love for this kind of psychological torture of people. Ew. By 17 years old, he was a professional. And when he broke into a home that belonged to a friend of Tina's, that's how he got her phone number.
Okay.
So now back to the first storyline. Frank he's in his daughter's room. He's staring at what looks like a bloody message on the wall. He sees the figure in his wife's clothes holding a hatchet behind him. The figure lunges at Frank and somehow gets past him. Frank runs to the neighbor's house, calls the police, but they clear the house. No one was in it. It seems like the figure who'd attacked Frank had just vanished.
Nope, he's there somewhere.
Vanished. Now Frank finally knew his daughters had not been making any of this crap up.
Right.
And he's struggling to figure out what to do because, it's hard when I saw something, but now I can't validate it. What do we do?
Yeah.
So smartly, they stayed with relatives for a couple of days. And then a few days later, he goes back to the house to kind of gather some clothing and stuff.
I'm not going back to that house by myself. I am taking any person willing to walk in there with me.
Like a flamethrower or something.
Yeah.
So before he even gets out of the car, though, he notices the same figure who'd attacked him standing in his window.
Oh, geez.
So Frank does not go in. He calls the police, telling them what he'd seen. And when they entered the Bowen home, even they grew frightened. It takes a lot to scare a cop. So this is a quote from one of the officers that arrived on the scene. Quote, "When I opened the door on the right-hand wall, I saw a knife sticking out of the wall. And I see it's through a picture, a family picture. Written on it was, 'I'm still here, come find me.' Now the hair goes up on the back of my head. On another wall, I saw another picture saying, 'I'm going to kill you all,' with a knife through it." And this was Officer Bezenson. And after all of this, they searched the house more meticulously, and they discovered a crawl space behind the washer and dryer. And that crawl space led through the whole house. This is how he was getting in the walls. So after he'd been rejected by Tina, he found that crawl space, and he used that to access her room and do all this stuff as a means of paying her back for not taking his calls. He'd created a series of peepholes through the house to spy on the family. And upon further investigation, the messages had actually been written in ketchup, not blood. So at this time, they found Danny finally curled up inside this crawl space. Mystery solved, but not over for the Bowens, and definitely not over for Danny. So while he was charged with armed assault and detained on a juvenile facility for the next 10 months, he was released on a $10,000 bail. His mom, I think she had to remortgage her home to pay for it.
Okay.
Oh, I left him in there, I think. It gets worse.
I mean, I would hope you would recognize he needs
help.
Serious
not
help.
Safe to be out.
Correct.
Not safe to be out. I think he's proven that. So this was October of 1987, and he reoffended. So while disturbed Danny was out on bail, the Gustafson family, comprised of Andrew and Priscilla and their two children, 7-year-old Abigail and 5-year-old William, and their unborn child, lived about half a mile from where Danny lived in Townsend, Massachusetts. Shortly after his release, he began breaking into and burglarizing homes again. I bet you're surprised.
Nope.
Okay.
Not even a little bit.
And he did this to the Gustafson home multiple times, but one day he returned to the home thinking everyone would be gone. Andrew was at work, but Abigail was at school, but Priscilla had just left to go pick up the little one, William, from the babysitter. So he was in their home when Priscilla returned, and instead of sneaking out like he usually did, he forced her into a bedroom, locked little William into a closet. He gagged, bound, and raped the mom, pregnant mom. Afterward, he placed a pillow over her head and shot her twice in the head through the pillow. He'd obtained the weapon from another neighbor's house that he'd robbed earlier. Then he took little William out of the closet and drowned him in a bathtub. And he'd planned on leaving when Abigail returned from school. So he took her and drowned her too. This happened between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And you can imagine the traumatic scene Andrew walked in on when he came home from work at 5:30 that evening. He would later say, "I was too afraid of going to look for my children because I was afraid I'd find them dead. It was so shocking and unbelievable. I screamed, I wailed." So officers had a sinking suspicion that Danny was behind these brutal attacks. Cops know what the judges cannot seem to figure out. Don't let violent offenders out of jail. So they use dogs to track him. They find him in another home in the neighborhood, but he was able to escape into the woods nearby. And then he carjacked another neighbor. She hurled herself out of her own van to get away from him.
Wow.
And then he still managed to escape. But the dogs finally do track him to a dumpster where he was hiding. Also where he belonged. Dumpster Danny, I think.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry, I know bad shit happened to this guy, but this is just, it's too much. So very obvious DNA evidence both on his person and in the places where he'd been. There was no question. Sealed his fate. So upon hearing about what had happened, Frank Bowen would say, "If Daniel LaPlante does not get convicted and gets out again, I will personally kill him."
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
He's serious.
Yep. "You can't imagine what kind of fear we have been living in. He is mentally insane. There is no question about it. And now I am financially broke and emotionally disturbed and trying to put my life together again." In 1988, Daniel LaPlante was found guilty of all 3 murders and sentenced to 3 life sentences with the possibility of parole after 45 years. How?
I don't know.
How?
He was still a teenager? Was that part of it?
Well, I mean, he had to be 17, 18. That's close enough. I'm sorry. I've seen cases where 15 and 16-year-olds were tried as adults.
Yeah.
But with the possibility, I just can't understand. I cannot comprehend in any universe, in any way, that possibility of parole is okay in this case.
Yeah.
It's just not. In 2017, therefore, he sought to be released from prison after a Massachusetts law went into effect that stated juveniles sentenced to life in prison should be given the opportunity to re-enter society. During his resentencing, LaPlante apologized for his actions and asked for a second chance. Here's what he said. You might need the vomit bucket.
This is the part. This is where I'm going to throw up.
Words cannot fully capture what I have done. I murdered 3 innocent people. Because of me, a 5-year-old boy will never turn 6. There's a 7-year-old girl that will never turn 8. Because of me, a woman will never be able to give birth to her 3rd child. LaPlante said, according to the Lowell Sun, I robbed an unborn child of his first breath. A husband was never able to hear from his family, I love you, LaPlante continued. I do not have the words to fully express my profound sorrow, but I am truly sorry for the harm I have caused. From the very essence of who I am, from the depth of my soul, I am sorry. Following a psychiatric evaluation, psychiatrist Fabian Salas said that LaPlante showed no empathy and continued to minimize his behaviors.
So he knew what to say in the letter or in his statement. But
psychopaths do.
Yeah.
I mean, you have that sociopathic tendency. You know how to mimic things. Yeah.
Yep.
It's not genuine. Priscilla's sister, Christine Morgan, testified that her sister wouldn't want LaPlante to see the light of day. Additionally, Andrew Gustafson's second wife, Carol Gustafson, said that Andrew was plagued by nightmares of his family's murder until he died from cancer in 2014.
Ooh.
Don't let this man out, Carol said. He should rot in prison. So that is the story of the original Frog King.
Eek.
Check your walls, people. Check your crawl spaces. Seal them the hell up so that if someone is in there, at least they're going to die in there.
I'm going to need a sedative to go to sleep tonight. Thank you very much. I've never done that before, but tonight might be the first time.
This is like a public service announcement, right? People are getting into your crawl spaces, your attics, your basements. Check your stuff.
One bonus of modern technology would probably be so many people have so many cameras around their houses now. I think it would be harder. Not impossible, but I think it would
be a little
less
harder.
Likely.
It would be a little harder, perhaps. But we were cracking up so hard a few weeks ago. Do you remember? I never did it, but kids would do ding dong ditch.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't either.
So we have this happen to us. We're out. I pull up my app and I can see this kid. And I'm just like, what are you doing?
You could talk to him?
You're on camera. And he was doing it to houses all over the neighborhood. Thought he was the coolest thing. Everyone had cameras. So then they're sending pictures around on the neighborhood apps like, here's this kid.
Yeah.
He's not real slick. Anyway, it's pretty funny.
How old was he?
Oh, 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the worst thing he's doing.
Yeah, I had to laugh. Oh, he thought he was so good. I'm running really fast, and I'm just cracking up going, oh, you scared me.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's kind of fun.
It would be fun, like to have, that's what we should do. Let's market this. TM. We're going to do this. The Ring doorbells or something similar, but then there's like monster sounds. So you push it, and if it's the wrong kind of person, like this terrifying sound comes ripping out of the wall.
That would be awesome.
That would be great. Those videos would go viral. I'm going to work on that just for my own entertainment.
I always love the ones of like, there's one really good one where it's a couple and they must have had like black ice, like freezing rain, and the car, like they put it in park and then the car doesn't stay in park because it's so slick.
Yeah.
And the man kind of chases it for a moment, but he make sure he doesn't do anything that's like not safe. He's not close enough to it. Anyway, and the wife's just like, when it stops, he's like, I'm going to park down the hill. And she was like, okay, I'll get your coffee or something like that. But it's all on the Ring Cam or whatever they have. So, okay. You officially freaked me out. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I say with complete sarcasm, but we'll take a quick break. We'll talk escapism co-host style and OneHeart woohoos. I need a happy ending after that.
Palate cleanser.
I like that.
Yeah.
I need a palate
brain
cleanser.
Scraper, something. Yeah.
After that story.
Fair enough.
We will be right back. Keep it here. Hello, escape artists out there. Quick public service announcement. You hear us talk on the Escape Pod about the OneHeart campus. To learn more about this place for hope and healing where lives are changed for the better, listen to the prologue episode at escapepod.live or wherever you get your podcasts, or visit oneheartrc.org. Okay, welcome back into the Escape Pod. We are going to wrap things up for this episode, which gave me the heebie-jeebies for like minutes on end. Again, thank you, Charity Doyle. But yeah,
I do what I can.
Maybe the lesson here is don't attribute everything to the ghosts you can't see.
No.
You should probably actually check some stuff out.
Well, I'm telling you what, we're sitting in bed last night watching that show, and because it was creepy,
Yeah.
I heard something and I muted the thing and I'm like,
Go look.
what is that? And of course,
Oh.
okay, the ghost just knocked my microphone off its stand.
There you go. You just moved it enough times that it came loose. But is the top loose?
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Disaster averted. Good catch also. But yeah, I guess it was just our ice maker. But I'm like,
that freaks me out in my house
sure
sometimes.
that was our ice maker? He's like, yeah. I'm like, are you going to get up and check this out? No. Nope, he wasn't going to get up and check it out. So,
well, if you're listening and you're not a patron, if you become a patron and you get behind the paywall, there are some bonus episodes, including one called The Intruder, something along those lines. And that's my own little like freak out about hearing things that required my now husband to go check things out.
Yep.
And I was super glad he did. Obviously, I'm still alive and well and here to tell the tale. So it all ended up okay. But it was kind of that moment of knowing stories of people getting into houses.
Yeah.
Yep. And just I am a chronic door locker. Like I will check doors multiple times in a night.
Same.
Before I go to bed. And so, yeah. You could become a patron, then you get access to all of those bonus episodes. Okay, what are you... Oh, wait. I'll do the woohoo first.
Do the woohoos.
We have two.
Okay.
And they're from this fall. They are from a few weeks ago, but they're still really good, and the people are still doing awesome, so it hasn't changed in the last few weeks. But one of our care coordinators here on campus sent this out to say a guest recently celebrated 2 years being fentanyl-free without the use of Suboxone.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'm saying that right, but if you didn't know, it's a medicine sometimes used to treat dependency on opioid drugs. So so this person was able to hit 2 years.
That's awesome.
Fentanyl-free and not needing the assistance of that medication, which is pretty cool. Another one, I've actually met this young person, and the care coordinator says she loves when she has to come in for meetings. Like they do usually bi-monthly meetings with their guests. And she's like, I just love when she has to come in because she's just so fun to talk to. So this is pretty cool. But she got accepted into a cadets program with a local law enforcement agency.
Heard about that. Yes.
And so now that is her dream, is that one day she will become a law enforcement officer. And she just shared with the care coordinator how much her confidence has grown since starting that program.
That's awesome.
So I thought that was really cool. Okay, where are you escaping to? A place, a mindset,
Oh, I already
a
told
movie?
you. Like, I'm waiting for that whatever I'm going to take for the histamine stuff to come so I can test out, can I have a coffee?
Okay.
Because it's just going to make my life so much happier.
That will be fantastic.
Oh, my gosh.
Don't
Yes.
become as addicted as I am.
No, I don't. Yeah.
I didn't even drink coffee until I had a child. And then I was like, how am I going to get through the day?
Yeah, especially when you were still working nights.
Yeah, it was a doozy.
Yeah.
So I think because we're coming up on a break in school, the beauty of that is not that all of my kids' activities come to a halt, but a couple of them do. So it's just
I love those times when my kids were younger.
Little bit more free time.
It's so much more work for a parent nowadays than it was when we were kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. And I think, too, just a lot of things have changed, right? So my best friend and I talk often about, we both were swimmers on the swim team when we were growing up. And in our small town, you could literally walk, and we did walk from the school to the swim pool.
Yeah.
Wasn't an especially long walk. If it was probably really bad weather, a parent would probably come pick us up. But you could have practice right after school, and then about the time that parents would normally get off work, they'd come pick you up. So you were generally, at least as a younger kid, you were home by 5:30 at night and having dinner and not necessarily going right out the door to some other thing. We often were because I had older siblings, so they might have stuff in middle school or high school that we were headed to. But now we don't even begin some activities until at least 5 o'clock. So like we might get home for a really short time after school, and then we're out the door again. Yeah. And then we're out the door for, last night it was 3.5 hours I was gone. So you just kind of, it's fine. And I love it. And everybody says, you miss it when you're done. And I believe that. I know enough people who feel that way.
Nope. Not everybody does.
Not everybody misses it. I don't know that it's the running around they miss. I think it's the having the kids to, be involved in things. And that part, I do genuinely like having them involved. And
well, I would say we really cherished that time.
Yeah.
And we're really cherishing being empty nesters now.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's important. I think it's good to be content where you are because you can't change it.
No.
Like you can't go back in time and you can't fast forward. So for sure. Can I also just mention some other things? These are not escapisms, but along those lines, like things you're thankful for that are just little things that you just make you happy. So this was my Thursday so far. Like my favorite pen that I write thank you notes with has run out of ink. So I need to go get another one. It's my favorite color ink. And I am almost out of thank you stamps. And you know what that means? People are donating during the holiday season. So if you're listening and you're a supporter of ours here at OneHeart, thank you. You really are.
You are helping us transform lives.
Yes. And I just love it.
It is remarkable.
So every time that happens, when I have to buy more thank you stamps or when I have to go get my favorite pen color because I've run out of ink, I'm like, this is a good problem to have.
And I think it's starting to the community is starting to understand
more about
to transform a life
happening here.
It is not a 30-day program.
No.
It is not even a 6-month program.
Right.
There are you're condensing everything into a year or 2 years to set someone up for a good, productive life.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Well, and
it's not quick.
Very few people got into those situations overnight.
Or in 30 days.
Get out of them in that time frame. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. So if we can get our local city council people to understand that.
Well, some of them do.
Well,
just not all of them
do. No.
On that note, thanks all for tuning in. We appreciate you. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend who you think might enjoy it too. By the way, not all of them are Phreaky Phrogging episodes. Sometimes they're just funny.
Sometimes they are just funny.
We do a little bit of everything here. We're a small team writing, researching, producing, and promoting the show in our spare time to hopefully one day be able to provide some operational support for the nonprofit OneHeart campus, where we are empowering people to overcome crisis and achieve self-sustainability.
Oh, can I brag for a minute?
Please do.
So I was talking to a friend of mine back from Mines, and she does a lot of grant work and consulting. Mm-hmm. And she said our mission statement was hands down the best she's ever seen.
That's awesome.
Isn't that cool?
It really is.
And also we're doing it.
Yeah.
We're doing it. It's not just a beautiful mission statement.
Yeah.
But we really are a true podcast for a cause, so you can feel good about sharing this and spreading the word. So please, please, please take 30 seconds. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. It really helps us gain more exposure, and more listeners equals more ad revenue. And that ad revenue all goes to support the guests doing the transformative work on our campus. You can check out our website at escapepod.live and link out to our socials from there. Cara Beth and Julie, well, mostly Cara Beth handles our social media accounts.
Yeah.
Don't ask me even what we're on. Because she'll handle it, but it's all on the website. If you're a social media fan, you can reach out to us just for whatever, at justbecause at escapepod.live, or if you have an escape story that involves phrogging, or what else did we talk about today? Histamine. Recently,
as I said last
identity
week,
theft.
I hope you don't have that story, but if you do,
Any of that stuff, please write in, share it with us, and maybe we'll read your story in a future episode. You can send those stories in to escapeartist@escapepod.live.
and as she mentioned, more ad revenue, but you can also just become a patron of the show,
I
and
always
you
forget
do
to say
that on the website at escapepod.live. That's where
So shout out patrons. Thank you very much.
Yes. We are closing the hatch on this edition of the Escape Pod. Remember, trauma may be inevitable, but how you grapple with it is optional. So stay resilient.
And keep laughing.
Bye, everybody.